Welcome to Out of the Blue. I'm Jen White. On today's episode, we present the documentary Acts of Art. Producer Catherine Wider chronicles the efforts of the University of Michigan's Buzz Alexander and Janie Paul as they work to bring the transformative power of art into prisons.
Janie Paul and Buzz Alexander saw Win Satterly's art for the first time at the Southern Michigan Correctional Facility in Jackson, Michigan, where he was serving a life sentence. They were at the prison to select work for the annual exhibit of prison art at the University of Michigan. It's a trip they've been making every year since 1996, traveling thousands of miles all over the state of Michigan.
It's a grueling process to do all this traveling and to go into prisons because they're not fun places, but it's exhilarating, and this is what keeps us doing this. It's exhilarating to come in contact with people who are living in such terrible conditions and who are surviving with such dignity, and to see the evidence of people's spirit in the artwork.
There are over 48,000 prisoners in the state of Michigan. The U.S. is the most incarcerating nation in the world, accounting for 25% of the world's prisoners. The Prison Arts exhibit is both an art show and a political statement. It makes visible what is mostly invisible: the interior lives of some of the most feared people in our population.
Most prisoners realize that most people outside hate them because of the way prisoners have been stereotyped. And that's very hard inside, to be sitting there and knowing that everybody outside, or most people outside, are opposed to you. So what we're doing is the opposite of that, and I think that's really important to people.
I'm Mary Heinen. I was formerly known as Mary Glover when I served life in the Michigan prison system for 26 and a half years. I want to say that in our time, this is the most important human rights and civil rights work that we will do and that we will know. And I think it cannot be underestimated how meaningful this work is to people inside like me that have now had the opportunity to be free and to come home and receive the support that I have received from everyone in this room.
Mary Heinen was the first prisoner that Buzz Alexander would meet. The Prison Creative Arts Project began in 1990 as a theater class for 2 inmates at the Florence Crane Correctional Facility in Coldwater, Michigan.
I was teaching a course. It was English 319, and it was a guerrilla theater course. And there was a student who was working with Mary and with a woman named Joyce, who were both lifers, and they were both enrolled at the University of Michigan from prison, and they wanted to take the course. When I started going into prisons, I didn't know anything. I just knew that we had prisons and that people were locked up, and I may have had some inkling of how serious it was getting. I just grabbed it because I knew I wanted to work in places like that.
At the time, Mary Heinen was famous in the prison world for her advocacy and work for women's rights in prison. She had been in prison since she was 21 years old.
As soon as I arrived, I met a woman, a lifer, named Mary Butler, that really helped me, because she used to say to me all the time, stay in the court, stay in the court, stay in the court, get an education, do something with yourself while you're here. It's the only way you'll get out, and it's the only way you'll be somebody. You can make something out of yourself, even in here. Just go to school.
Mary is the plaintiff in Glover versus Johnson, a 1979 landmark civil rights case that established women prisoners' constitutional rights to educational and vocational programs and access to the courts. It was because of this case that Mary and Joyce were able to take Buzz's class.
Almost immediately, we asked if that
could be opened up, if the program itself could be opened up to everybody, because we didn't want to be the only two in the program. We wanted it open for everybody, hopefully in the entire system. And the facility said yes, and that was it. It took off like a wildfire after that.
We advertised that there was a posting. 120 women signed up to come to the first session. 60 actually came. They stood in a circle, held each other's hands, which we hadn't asked them to do. There was something special in the room that they were feeling. And we talked to them for a moment, and then I did an exercise, which it's called Vampire, and it involves people walking around and being turned into vampires and screaming. And it's a really good sign I didn't understand where I was, because we did the exercise, and I was walking around with my eyes closed, sort of going like this, you know, and I didn't hear any screaming, and I opened my eyes, and there were 3 of us walking around. 30 of the 60 women had left the room. The other 30, or most of them, were sitting there looking at us. And I learned later that you're not allowed to scream in prison, so this was very disorienting to them. And so we stopped and we gathered with them, and we said, we're going to come here every week. We're committing to you all. We're going to have a theater workshop here. And they liked that. And then when it was over, some of them came up to me and said, can we scream every week? You know, because there was a chance to do what they couldn't do. So they automatically knew this was an environment where you do theater, there are things that are possible.